So the new schedule for JP just dropped, and it told us absolutely nothing about the 5th anniversary other than it's happening, and honestly, I'm kind of mad about it. I was so excited for information, and then it was literally like one sentence just saying there'd be a few anniversary campaigns, which tells us nothing. I wouldn't say it's necessarily late for me, but I feel like I wasted all this time waiting around, so I'm gonna try and make something of this. So I'm gonna wildly speculate on what might be coming for the 5th anniversary by breaking down the preview banner. Despite the schedule not saying anything, the preview banner did give us a new background which has some very interesting things in it, and things I think as a cosplayer I'm qualified to talk about. Behind this giant gem, which we'll talk about later, looks to be a sewing room. It's much cleaner than mine, I'll tell you that. Over on the right we see an older model of sewing machine. It's black and looks like the vintage, late 1800s one my Aunt Becky keeps in her guest room. Although it's not super detailed, it definitely looks like it's a fairly old model. I personally learned how to sew on a machine from the late 60s, but this looks like it's maybe a 1920s machine, maybe 30s. I'm not super versed in sewing machine history, but it looks like it predates the 40s or 50s. It also looks like it's built into that table, which, although that's not unheard of nowadays, would date it a little. Like I said, the machine I learned on and made a lot of my early cosplays on was from the 60s, and it was built into a table. My Aunt Becky's one that I talked about, that's also built into the table. That sort of thing nowadays is not very common. Again, you see that sometimes, but it's definitely just not very prevalent now. By it is a spinning wheel and what I think is a lamp, considering there's something else very similar tucked behind the giant Annie logo. Over on the left is what I'm assuming is bolts of fabric in a bin. You mostly see fabric like this in fashion districts. I've never seen it in a Joann Fabrics per se, rest in peace. But when I go cosplay fabric shopping in LA, I do see this occasionally. We can also see a dress form and some kind of sketch. There's also something that looks like a spool of thread and some ribbon in the corners. The logo looks like a black mage stone, which, looks like an overblotted gem, and I do not care for that very much. But I have some ideas around that, so now that we've talked about what's in the banner, let's go over some ideas of what they might mean. We have a lot of things that point to this being a sewing room, but with that comes the question of who does this room belong to? I have 3 ideas. I've seen some people speculate it's Cruel's, which I think is possible. We know he makes a lot of costumes for the students and he loves fashion, so it makes sense that he'd have somewhere to make said costumes. But I'm gonna be real, I don't know if it's flashy enough to be his. His guest room furniture is very flashy and it sticks to a strict color palette. This doesn't match his aesthetic, so I don't know if it's like his personal sewing room. But it could be possible he's borrowing the space from the school, which leads me into my next thought. This could be a workshop on NRC's campus and the school is in charge of it. There's a lot of storage in that room and a huge space for sketches and notes and stuff, which school sewing workshops have. Although it's not confirmed, NRC most likely has a drama department, and where there's drama departments, there's costume building. Not to mention there's a film studies club, so this could be part of their club room where they make stuff. However, to provide some counterpoints, it's weird to me that a school as large as NRC would have only one sewing machine, and one that looks pretty old. I mean, maybe there's other machines that we can't see, and or there's more machines just out of frame, but I personally think it might just be that one machine. And if you're making loads of costumes for productions or club stuff, one machine is not gonna cut it. Then there's the possibility this is still on NRC's campus, but this is actually in Ramshackle and this is Youth Sewing Room. The color scheme certainly matches Ramshackle, and the sewing machine being an older model might point to it being given to you, since it would be very old and ready to be replaced by something newer in the school. Or it could just be something someone left behind in Ramshackle and you finds it. There's a lot of rooms in the dorm that you hasn't necessarily explored. This could be one of them. And to argue against this for all fairness, it's not like Ramshackle's color scheme is exclusive to them. The costumes do have these colors as well. Outside of the mystery of who does this room belong to is the question of why it's involved in the 5th anniversary. Ramshackle doesn't have an official dorm uniform, so I have to wonder if part of this event is going to be creating a Ramshackle uniform. We know their official color is charcoal gray from the Savannah Claw manga, but the vest color is all we know about their official uniform, and only their school uniform. Maybe in the anniversary, Ramshackle gets recognized as an official dorm and therefore needs a special dorm uniform. Except for birthdays and the PE uniform, the only outfit Grimm is missing that all other characters have is the dorm uniform. Maybe that's why we're seeing the sewing room, so you can make an official dorm uniform. Or maybe Ramshackle doesn't get officially recognized, but Grimm wants them to have their own dorm uniform like the others, so you whip something up. I mean, let's be real here, I could see Grimm rightfully complaining about how Ramshackle doesn't get anything compared to the other dorms, so he and you make their own dorm uniforms. And then there's also the logo to think about. At first, I was thinking maybe it's not supposed to be an overblotted mage stone and it's supposed to represent Ramshackle, but Grimm has a mage stone and it's not that color. I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility to have a black mage stone and not have it be the result of an overblot, but I feel like that would be a bad idea. Like, how would you be able to tell him how much blot was in it if it's black? Like, the blot is just gonna, like, match it, you know? And also, like, it could just be this color was chosen because black is a nice color and fits the aesthetic of the game interface. My insane crack theory is that it's black on purpose and it means we're gonna get overblot cards for the anniversary, but instead of the guys being overblotted, it's just a costume tying into the background. I don't think that's it though, because although it'd be kind of funny, it'd also be massively messed up of you to do. Like, oh, remember that horrible moment in your life? Here's a costume based on it. Like, that would be so cold. But man, I want overblot cards and I know I'm not alone in that. People have wanted overblot cards since the game came out. My other insane crack theory is that we get to design our own U because there's clearly some sketches and notes and stuff around this room, but that's not gonna happen. I'd love for that to be a thing, but logistically, it'd be insanely difficult. The more layers you have on a live 2D model, the more laggy it can get and the more complicated the rigging can get. Well, yeah, you can very easily add toggles to turn parts of a model on or off, and you can implement color changing stuff. Anything that can get turned on would need to be rigged, which can take a while. And also, it's not like the pieces of a model that can be turned off are just gone. It's done by turning the opacity to 0. They're still there and it's moving, it's just that you can't see it. Actually, hold on a second, I'm gonna switch models real fast. Where's my toggles on my stream deck? Okay, there we go. So for example, I have a modesty panel toggle for my model in case Twitch or YouTube decides they hate bad bitches. I can turn it off or on, but I still had to do a load of rigging with that panel to make sure it followed my model's body and stuff. And also, like, even though you guys see it now, literally, it's still moving even now that I don't have it on. Like, it's still moving and stuff, it's just that, you know, whether you can see it or not is, you know, it depends on what I have the opacity as. Like, this is where it's at 100% opacity, and this is where it's at 0, so yeah, like, it's still moving, it's still doing all the things it's rigged to do, you just can't see it. And also, I don't even know where this U model could be implemented. I doubt it'd be in the main story or anything, it'd probably just be a for funsies thing, and I don't think the dev team would do that. It doesn't make sense to spend so much time on something so small, even if a load of the fanbase would love it. My final idea is maybe the color is significant, but in a symbolic way. Like, all the house wardens had new fancy outfits for their dreams. Maybe the logo is symbolizing the overblot-induced dream worlds, and we'll get Punk Riddle and Fancy Leona for the anniversary. I'm sorry, I keep hitting my mic. I need to stop doing that. Although, honestly, that idea sounds crazy, too. Honestly, I think everything with the logo is just gonna sound crazy because 1, it's black like an overblot stone, and 2, it's pretty tame compared to past logos, so it doesn't really tell us anything, or at least it's not obvious in what it's symbolizing. Overall, I think it's pretty likely that the background is a sewing room and clothes creation of some kind will probably play into the event, but whether it's making a dorm uniform or an overblot costume or something else entirely, we don't know. We'll find out fairly soon though, and I'm excited to finally learn what's gonna happen for the 5th anniversary. But yeah, I know I promised a reaction video, and my actual reaction was kind of terrible. And again, literally all they said was like one sentence. So consider this a consolation prize video, in exchange for me not doing that other one. Before I go to bed, I'd like to give a quick shout out to my ladyfingers in waiting for supporting me and continuing to allow me to make these videos. Thank you to Annette, Michgal2189, Eel, Omimi, Visa, Farafo, Ukaku, Yozo the Kiseki, Richter32, Yungumo, and Crabjail. I love you guys! And to everyone who stuck around for this insane video, thank you too! Thank you for dealing with my crazy ass. I probably will be making more anniversary videos later, so I'll see you then!